at that. We have an indication that it's recording.
All right. Well then, good morning, Salamat Pagi, and good evening to all my USDA colleagues. This is another of our BPS USDA information exchanges / meeting / training / whatever we want to call these wonderful opportunities that we have to get together and share information and our experiences in agricultural statistics. Tonight's topic is the use of remote sensing for crop mapping. I don't really have any additional hello comments. I don't know if anyone from BPS would like to say good morning or good evening specifically.
Okay, Sarah. Morning, Sarah.
Hello.
Yeah, Sarah. First of all, I should say that apologize for Pak Mr. Chief Statistician, Deputy Chief Statistician, Pak Abibullah cannot join for today's presentation because he has another business outside Jakarta. So he has asked me to accompany you to see this training. So and I should say about good morning to everyone in Indonesia, and also good evening to everyone in USDA. Nice to see you again in our series of USDA training. We call it the USDA BPS training because sometimes USDA presenter and sometimes BPS. So I got our series of USDA BPS training, as you mentioned. As I don't know, this is the training or workshop or etc. But today we are going to discuss. Our topic is the use of remote sensing for identifying corn and land, or we call it just crop mapping. Again, I'm glad to see you again in today's session, especially for you, Sarah, and you always join us, and also Mark, and I don't know, Pak Gareth. I think Pak Gareth, I don't see Pak Gareth here, so I think, but again, thank Pak Gareth for facilitating this training, or maybe USDA BPS training, and also Bugi, who always remind us for the invitation. And of course, I cannot mention all of you one by one. And today's presentation will be the fourth time we share our experience, which is especially for today's experience is the most challenging for us, since the remote sensing is very new area that BPS BPS has never had experience before. And once again, I would also like to thank you for your question and valuable comment on the last three presentations. And we do appreciate your attention and what we implement in Indonesia to provide the production, figure, and food crop commodities. Yeah, and I told you that I will inform you that the today presentation will be delivered by our methodology team. Here's Arif, and just fresh new graduate from university, and also he will be accompanied by Kadir. Yeah, and again we welcome any question and valuable comment from all of you. If it is possible, I plan to implement the remote sensing technique for identifying or monitoring crop other than paddy, because we still have we suffer from the production figure, especially for other commodities. And once the government asks us, especially for BPS, what other commodities, and we just rely on other source, especially just for the district report system. So we just release from the report as our statistical figure especially for agriculture statistics other than paddy. But for especially for paddy, all government institutions already acknowledge the use of the area sampling frame. So it is the area sampling frame already used as the method to produce the national figures of paddy or rice. So I think that's all from me, and I hope we will have a nice discussion and we will enjoy for today's presentation. And that's all from me, and thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. So as you mentioned, our speakers today are Arif and Kadir. If you would like to share your screens and start, that would be great.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone in Indonesia, and good evening in everyone USDA. I'm Arif. Will present the use of remote sensing for identify count line and crop mapping. This is the research study of BPS to using remote sensing and machine learning on the agricultural sector. First, the overview of this research, we will know why we do this research, what methodology we use, and what the result of this research. Sorry. First, the count area sampling frame, or ISF, lack of information about the total of area corn. To estimate the harvest area of corn becomes the problem of the corn. So, like what we said before, in the corn area sampling frame, we don't have the sampling frame or the total population of corn area. That's why we, until now, doesn't have the harvested area estimate. So this research purpose to predict the potential area of corn plants. We call it the potential area because we get it from the estimate value, not the population or the parameter value. So we can use this to help corn area sampling frame to estimate corn harvested area. Sorry, I will share other screen. As we described before, this is last week. The problem of area sampling frame without the updated sampling frame is first the cost. Of course, the sampling have the survey can cost a lot of national to estimate. If we use the small area, we just cost a little money to estimate it. But we cost for national estimate, we must have a lot of money to estimate it. When we don't have updated sampling frame area, we have lack of information for non-sampling observation. We just have information about the sampling, what we sampling, what the sample, but we don't know what the characteristic of the other observation non-sampling observation. The representative of sample is not too representative too, because we don't have a sampling frame. Did the sample already representative for the population? We don't know that. because we don't have the updated sampling frame. Another problem is we have special information, but when we don't have updated sampling frame, we lack of updated information. We have a lack of special information. Today we have so many special analysis for statistics. So if we don't have a special information, we can do the special analysis for statistics. And we have a time problem too. How long or how many lags from the survey to estimate? A week, a day, or a month, or quarterly, or a half, or semesterly, or a year? That's the time we need to estimate. So we propose the solution. The solution is to collaboration between ground check, remote sensing, and machine learning. Why? We use the ground check to portray the land use or land cover. BPS have many point of ground check. We have office in every regency or district. We have many officers to do the ground check. This point plus of BPS, so we can portray the land use or land cover. That's what we use to collaboration the research. Remote sensing covers all of national. This is global wide remote sensing, not just little satellite like Landsat or Sentinel-2 is covered all the nations. It is free and periodically published or updated. It is a good source of data, which now many researchers using this. And machine learning can process big, complex, and unstructured data. It does processing process. Then what methodology we use in this research? First for response variable, we use count ground check from April to October in 2019. In potential regency in Jawa Timur, we record the coordinate and the month of response variable too. Then we using the satellite imagery as predictor variable. We use Landsat 8, Landsat 8, Sentinel-1 or Sentinel-2 as predictor variable source. Then we use random forest as machine learning in classification of corn area. This is the classification of process. First, we collect the response variable from the ground check. Then we pre-processing the data. We join the ground check data with satellite imagery, with the key is month and coordinate, longitude and latitude. So we have satellite imagery with ground check label. That's the response variable is ground check label. Then we visualization and exploration it for statistic description. We just look for outlier or any pattern of spectral index we use. Then we processing the data using random forest to classify. We need insight and policy decision. For example, we need the cutoff for corn plant. In Indonesia, we know corn plant it harvested every 3 months, but in some area it can harvested in 2 months or 1 month. We need to cut off wherever it's called the corn. If it's 3 or a month plant corn, is it corn or we use 2 months as cut off to call it the corn plant. We need the insight and policy decision. In this research, we use 3 month plant, 3 month corn as a plant harvested corn. This is satellite imagery we use. We use 3 satellites and then we combine 3 satellites to get the better result. First, the Sentinel-2, it has 10 meter accuracy for one resolution in pixel. This have 5 dialects. The type is radar. It means it can portrait without cloud cover. But for the other satellites, Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-8, Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8, it has an optic feature for our optic type. It has a problem when we have cloud cover. The data in area with cloud cover, wherever we use Sentinel-2 or Sentinel or Landsat 8, it has null value when we got the area with cloud cover. The start of the Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 is newly, but Landsat 8 is start from 1980, about that. We use Google Earth Engine as satellite source, classification software, and visualization. We use Google Earth Engine to collect the satellite imagery from Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, and Landsat 8. We use classification too in Google Earth Engine. Google Earth Engine have a feature of random forest classification. We use random forest on Google Earth Engine. Then the classification result, we can use visualization in Google Map too. So we can compare the result of classification with the result of Google Earth Engine map. Real-time data or nearly data, not real-time. The model specification for the research is what parameter we use for the random forest classifier. We use the default as described in documentation of Google Earth Engine. We don't tune up the parameter because we still research what the best treatment for remote sensing in random forest. We still research it. For the predictor variable, we combine the value at the current observed. Like April, we have the current value of April. Then May, we have the current value of May. And the statistic of spectral index. We have 6 spectral index in here, like vegetation index. We use enchanted vegetation index, normalized different. Sorry, it's normalized, not normalized. Normalized different vegetation index or NDVI, and visible atmospherically resistant index or VERI. Then we use water index too. We use NDVI to detect the water index, the water body of the land. Then we use build up index to detect the land build up, and soil index to detect the soil area of the vegetation. Then the result of the classification we can look in here. First, we use each satellite separately. We use satellite Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, and Landsat 8. We got the accuracy. Sentinel-1 not too good, is only 67. Then the Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-8 have almost same accuracy. But what the best is when we use 2 satellites combined, Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8, we got almost 80% accuracy with 58 kappa value. For the combining of 3 satellites, Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, and Landsat 8, we got the value not too big as 2 satellites we use. So with this research, we use the 2 satellite combination. This is average of accuracy, kappa, and sensitivity by Regency in Jawa Timur. It is sample Regency in Jawa Timur. We have the biggest or the smallest value using combination of satellite Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8. First, we got the best accuracy in Banyuwangi. We got 85% accuracy. But when we do the model, the random forest model in Sumeneb, it has the smallest accuracy. It just has 67%. Then when we look the sensitivity class, cone area in Tuban have the biggest sensitivity class. And 96%. And other area not too different. But the worst sensitivity is in Kediri. We got 0.1 or 10%. For the information, we add the sampling, we add the forest data into the training data, because by the ground check we don't have forest point or forest data. So we put the forest point into the training area, then we got the better result in sensitivity of non-paddy of field class. But special case in Kediri, we got the worst accuracy or worst sensitivity. We look next in the slide. This is the result of classification. The pink area is non-paddy field. It can be forest or house or the road or anything non-paddy area, non-paddy field area. The light green is the corn potential area. We can look at the north of Banyuwangi area is full of corn potential area, and the south too. But when in the middle of Banyuwangi area, we have non-corn paddy field. It means the paddy field has non-corn plant. It can be rice or other crop plant. And we have cloud cover too. This is what I say before. When we use satellite with optic type, we have the problem in cloud cover. Like in southeast of Banyuwangi, we have many cloud cover with the gray color. By the accuracy in July 2019, we have 87% accuracy with 92 kappa. 92% kappa. It is the best model in among other agency in this research. Then when we sum up into April and October, we have an average accuracy in Banyuwangi is 87% and the kappa is 75%. If we do the composite, we can look like the left map on left. We have no cloud cover, but it is the average value from April and October. So we can use the average. We can use every month, but with the cloud cover problem like before. This is for Kediri Regency. Like I said before, it has the smallest non-paddy field. I don't know when the location of the house or the forest in Kediri, but from the sensitivity of non-paddy class, we can conclude the model is not too sensitive to detect the forest or the house. So we must add in some other point of sample, like house sample or road sample, to get the better sensitivity on non-paddy field class. In Jember Regency, we have so many non-paddy fields. For the corn area, we have so and the non-corn paddy field, we have just a little. This is the observation for the average observation on April to October, with the accuracy is 85 and the kappa is 76. This is for the regency with the smallest accuracy in this research. Sumeneb is the coastal area, so we have so many cloud cover in Sumeneb. That's why the accuracy become the smallest among the others. And the kappa too. This is our problem in this research. Wherever we have a coastal area or mountain area with the thick cloud cover, the accuracy will drop into 60 or 60, yeah, about 60%. Then we, from the result of accuracy, we can estimate the potential area of land monthly because I have observation from April to October in Banyuwangi. So we can see the potential area of corn in column 2. In first column, we have non-paddy field. In column 2, we have potential area of corn and non-corn paddy field area. So what we do to estimate this potential area of corn? First, we uniformly Sentinel-2 resolution to Landsat 8 resolution, because Sentinel-2 have 10 x 10 meter per pixel, and Landsat 8 have 30 meter per pixel. So we must change the Sentinel-2 from 10 to 30 pixel per resolution. Then we sum up the pixel every class. Then we sum up the pixel each class. Then we times it with 0.09 hectare area. So we got the estimate potential of corn area monthly in Banyuwangi in hectare area like this. The problem of this research is, first we must improve the classification algorithm. As I described before, for the area without the forest, we got the small sensitivity like Kediri. We must improve the algorithm. Maybe we use deep learning or neural network or more complex algorithm to get the better results. We must add the temporal variable too to the variable predictor. Why we don't do this in Google Earth Engine? Because Google Earth Engine has some limitation in number of variables. We can do this in R software, but it takes a long time to run it. So that's the problem too. We must have supercomputer to do that. But for the faster solution is we use non-temporal variable in Google Earth Engine. But I think if we use a temporal variable, the accuracy maybe have the improvement, the sensitivity too. Then we must feature engineering for cover. When we Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8, the main problem is cloud cover. Maybe in non-island area or non-coastal area, that is not happen for cloud cover problem. In Indonesia, we have so many cloud cover problems. So we must feature engineering how to solve the cloud cover problem. Then how to improve the area without the forest. This is a new problem we found in Kediri, so I put in the problem of research. That's the problem of research, and thank you. I think that's all, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Arif. All right. So reminder to everyone, if you want to ask questions, please write them in the Zoom group chat.
Yes.
I think we've got
from Jensen.
Yes, we've got a couple already. So the first one is, has your group explored synthetic aperture radar, SAR, process for the removal of clouds?
Well, we not yet explore this. We just use Sentinel-1 as satellite, radar satellite to get rid of cloud cover problem. But we don't have explored it because this research is so newly or so novelty.
You were freezing during that. Can you repeat your answer?
Yes. Sorry. We have not yet explored the synthetic aperture radar, but we use Sentinel-1 satellite for the cloud cover problem. So maybe it's good for you to explore the synthetic aperture radar. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Another question is, what is accuracy measurement in your PowerPoint? MSE, MAPE, or confusion matrix?
We use the confusion metric as traditional accuracy measurement. So from the research, we use the accuracy kappa value to compare it with randomly trial and sensitivity each class. The three measure is our main focus on accuracy measurement.
Okay. Another question is, can you explain the meaning on slide 14 of the green boxes? Slide 14.
Okay, I will jump to slide 14. Oh, this is the green background is the highest value from the among satellites. So when we use, for Sentinel-1, I take the wrong. Oh no, the wrong. This is the highest value. For sensitivity of non-Paddy field class, I jump for. I will tell about accuracy. The green box accuracy has the biggest value in Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8. It's 79 in Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8. The other satellites have the smaller accuracy than two satellites combined. Then the Kappa 2 and the other, etc. So the green box is describe the highest value on the column or among satellites.
Okay, thank you. Another question is your use of Google Earth Engine self-taught or via formal training? How did you learn Google Earth Engine?
We use Google Earth Engine when we in college for the master degree. This is a part of my thesis. My promoter is from the LAPAN or Indonesia NASA. So we propose to use Google Earth Engine. So we it non-formal training. The other question is, are the image classification based on single depth of imagery or multiple depth? We use the multiple depth. When we use Google Earth Engine, we got the composite variable for the statistics. So like average, minimum, maximum. We use 3 months or 6 imagery for the Landsat 8 and about 5, 6, 7, 18 for Sentinel-2 satellite imagery. So we use multiple depth on one observer value.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. USDA oh, yes, we just got another one. NASA's investigating using GEE for our remote sensing program. It is impressive that you're using it already. Do you have a commercial GEE license, or are you using it for research only, so it's free?
Okay, Rick, we use it for the research only. That's why we have a limitation for the variable numbers. I think if you use the Google engine with commercial license, or you have a MOU with Google Earth Engine, you can upgrade the variable into the maximum number, or you can put the sampling, so many number of sampling. You can improvement. But when we use the free or for research only, we have the limitation for the computing. First, the computing. Second is the number of sample and the number of variable, the predictor variable. And the class we use, if we use many class response, we have a long time to run. I ever do a 2-day run for one regency to get the measurement accuracy. So maybe if you got a GE license, you can make it faster and better, of course.
Any other questions? We have a comment. Dave Johnson is acknowledging that he's also found lack of information gained from the inclusion of Sentinel-1 imagery.
Yes, Sentinel-1 imagery, the people who use Sentinel-1 imagery to classify the land cover or land use is still limited. So the information we get, the Sentinel-2 just 2 variables, I think. It's pH or CV or HH. We call it that in Sentinel-1. Yeah, we just can combine that into new index. It's different with Sentinel-2 or Landsat 8, which have so many bands. Sentinel-1 just have 2 bands. Then we combine it in 4 bands, or we can do the mathematical operation to get new index. But for now, Sentinel-1 can do the best in cloud cover, but not best in non-cloud cover area. So that's why for the sum up of national estimation, we still use the Sentinel-2 and Landsat 8 because the cloud cover still not too much, but still got the problem, still be the problem. So the Sentinel-1 imagery not to help in non-cloud cover area.
So do you have security concerns with your ground reference data in a cloud environment? Do you store your ground data in the cloud for supervised classification purposes or maintain it locally?
Yes, after we run the data, we delete the ground check data. So you can, for the security concern, you can access the ground check library without the permission of the user. So if you want to use our data, you can do that because we don't give permission like that. Do you store your code in data? No, we store it locally. We just use it on supervised classification. So there is no data left on the cloud. We can upload and delete it up to big. I think the data, the ground check data is just content 3 variable. Location is longitude, latitude, the mode of observation, and wait, I forget the longitude, latitude, the month, and the level of observation. We just have the three data of data, three data.
Then a question.
May I? Yes.
Sure.
Yes, Clement. I do this master thesis with my colleague in Banyuwangi. She expert in feature engineering. I think she name is Miss Dwi. Mrs. Dwi. Mrs. Dwi is expert in feature engineering. She found the multitemporal for PD, she used multitemporal, and I focus on the classification of the PD field and not the press, but the PD field only.
Arif, you're breaking up on me.
Used the same method.
I'm having a hard time understanding you. I'm hearing a lot of freezing of the audio. Can you repeat
yes,
that?
I will repeat it. Yes, sorry. Yes, we use. Yes, I have a college in master thesis. She's expert in feature engineering. Her name is Mrs. Dwi. Mrs. Dwi do the research on multi-temporal use for the PD classification. She the first she researched for what temporal, what month, what time we use to the best use for reclassified for PD. We use 4 month lag or 4 month before. So we use that for PD crop. For the corn crop, this is novelty of our research. We still finding the best formula, what the multitemporal, what the variable, what the index, what the best classification algorithm. So that we so that's what we do in crop. Yes, that is another crop we use in paddy crop.
Any more comments or questions? Oh, yep, got another one. Regarding the
yes, Rick, I separate it into 70 and 30 standard validation and training. For testing, we use about 20 or 30. No. We just using 70 and 30 for testing. We don't use validation data because as we described before, we use the free or purpose only for Google Engine. So when we use validation data, we got the problem when we running it over time or when we running it more than one iteration. But when I and Mrs. Dwi doing the research in paddy, we can use the validation data because we use the R software to run it. Not like R has no limitation on running. I think that's Sarah.
Okay, Rick, does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. All right, another one from Dave Johnson. In your classification work, what aspect do you think is still the most problematic?
The most problematic is we know Indonesia is so many different culture in every land. Iceland, maybe in Java Island we can do it this model, but I don't sure if we do in Papua or Kalimantan or Sulawesi. So the most problematic is we need the more or the biggest space to computing. So we can build the model in every regency, in every month. So we can cover every island with every characteristic on the land. Because in the Papua and in Java Island, there is no same characteristic on the land use or the land cover. That's what the most problematic.
Okay.
I think the machine learning is have a limitation. Maybe we going up for deep learning or convolutional neural network, but we still not decided because we still have a problem in computing. First, that in computing, we must change our algorithm or our business process from Google Engine to Python or R to use deep learning or neural network. So yes, we are going to continue to working on machine learning, but on other algorithm. I mean, next year or maybe yes, that's part of my work.
And then a question on the algorithm estimate.
Yes. Yes, for the estimate, like I said before, maybe I don't put the formula in the slide because, yeah, the time or the algorithm to estimate the area of corn, like I said before, so we uniformly change the Sentinel to resolution from 10 meter per pixel into 13 meter per pixel. So we can sum up it with the Landsat. Then we classify it. Then from the classification result, we sum up the point or the pixel in the area of interest. Then we times it with or multiply it with 0.09 hectare area. 0.09 is from 13 multiplied by 13 meters. So 1 point in 1 pixel in Landsat is 0.09 hectare area in reality or in field. That's the algorithm I use to estimate the area of interest.
Any more questions or comments? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Arif. It was very interesting.
Yes,
very interesting. Any comments from BPS, from Kadir or Pat Cadaramanto?
Okay. Okay, Sarah. Thanks, Sarah, for all the question and also comment. Actually, this is as I mentioned earlier during my opening speech during the beginning, that this is the remote sensing is quite new for us actually, and we still have we have never implemented for any commodity so far actually. This is because when we last time when I don't know maybe VIA presented the area sampling frame for corn, we are still facing with the total area how much the true area for the corn plantation actually. So that's why I encourage our young people to solve this problem. And this is Mr. Arif and Mr. Arif said that also Mrs. Dwi challenged to do this by using the remote sensing technique called the machine learning actually. And so far we just in the phase of in the process of like just like observation or maybe like a pilot, yeah. And he mentioned especially in Banyuwangi district, and this is in the East Java. So sometime maybe in the future when you have time to come to Indonesia, then we can visit the Banyuwangi. I think the most eastern part of Java Island. Yeah, and this is also when Arif said that the model he used actually he said that good for Java and not good for other area. This is the most challenging one actually. How many algorithm or how many model should we implement? We should implement in for the all should cover for all Indonesia, because Indonesia there is 5 big island, and with they have their own climate and their own maybe season time, yeah, maybe rainy season and maybe dry season is different between area, varies from area to area. So this is much big have problem actually when we conduct or maybe when we would like to implement the remote sensing. But maybe later on when the USDA give presentation on this remote sensing, maybe we can have more discussion how to solve the problem we face so far actually. That's my comment, Sarah. So maybe
Thank you.
Kadir, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Kadar.
Yeah.
Actually, I am interested with Justin question to deal with the cloud. Yeah, actually, this is one of the main issue at the moment that we are facing. And I think we can learn about this from USD expert, yeah, how to get rid of the cloud, yeah, because at the moment, as Arif said, we rely on satellite imagery obtained from Sentinel, and we have to deal with the cloud for some areas. So I think maybe the USD expert who have experience in dealing with cloud can help us, yeah, in this area. Maybe just that for me. Yeah, I think enough for today's presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so with our next training sessions, we will move into more of NAS sharing what we do. So we will definitely have remote sensing topics on our cropland data layer. I'm sorry, I have a cat tail that's helping me with the paperwork here. Disaster assessment, soil moisture, crop yield, and some other topics such as our crop cutting survey program that we do. But next week we're starting with area frame. So our first meeting will be discussing the segment area frame, the development, sampling, and estimation that we use in the United States. And then the second session next week, we'll be talking about other area frame developments besides the one that NAS actually uses within the United States. So unless there are any other comments or questions, we can all say farewell for tonight and this morning, and we will see you all on Tuesday morning. And for USDA folks, that will be Monday night. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it from our speakers and everybody who asked all the good questions and who helped participate tonight. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Great job, Arif.
Thank you. Thank you,
Ben.
Arif.
you,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Everybody.